what the science tells us is that whether you're talking about entrainment, which is the sound stuff, right? Whether you're talking about that or you're talking about anything else, what the science research is telling us is that it doesn't seem to be consistent. It doesn't seem to be the same for everybody that has the experience. So some people, some people experience these things in a profound way, and it gives them access to some kind of opening as far as consciousness is concerned, and other people don't. I suspect it goes back to what I said earlier, right? If you're really ready and receptive, you could fall down and experience enlightenment, right? And if you're not ready, no matter what happens, it's not going to happen. But the interesting thing about, because this no self-will thing, the interesting thing is that there seems to be an axis that reality turns on, wherein the idea that there's no self-will and the behavior that's occurring seem to come together at some point, to produce the next thing that's going to happen. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So you could say here, well, if there's no free will, then what's the difference whether I come here or I don't come here? At the same time that's the case, the fact that you're here seems to indicate that things are going in a certain direction, right? So you accept. This is one of the things that Ramana Maharshi said when people said to him the self-inquiry was too difficult for them to do. You know what self-inquiry is, right? Paying attention to the I am. See, you can actually. I don't think I'm a freak. You can actually recognize awareness, can't you? Yeah, you can actually recognize awareness. Yeah, and that's what Ramana Maharshi called the I am. The I am is awareness. It doesn't have a name yet. It didn't take on a personality yet. It's just here. That's awareness. That's the I am, right? And what Ramana Maharshi said, the self-inquiry is to pay attention to that I am, right? And do this as consistently as possible, and notice how the identity keeps taking what's happening and claiming it. Just watch it happen. Just watch it happen. And if you're watching it happen, just the fact that you're aware of what's happening and seeing it now where before you weren't seeing it, you were identified with it, just that will start to unravel it. Right? So that's what Ramana Maharshi said. Same thing when Nisargadatta, a famous teacher, said, his guru told him the same thing. Just pay attention to the I am. That's all you have to do, which is what he's referring to when he says the I am, he's referring to awareness. Just pay attention to awareness. But then people said to Ramana Maharshi, we find that too difficult to do. Is there anything, can you tell us anything else to do? Well, his first teaching was silence. But then when a lot of people were complaining that they didn't get anything from that, just by sitting. See, some people could come into his presence because they were ready, they were ripe. All they had to do was sit in his presence and they would wake up. Because they were in the presence of an awake human being, right? Other people would sit in his presence, and given the state of mind they were in and how receptive they were and how they had it all figured out, nothing happened. He's there, they're there, nothing happened. So they would say to him, can you give us something else other than silence? And then he said self-inquiry. He talked about self-inquiry to practice, and he said, that is the practice I'm giving you. And then people came back and said, well, I'm having difficulty doing that. That's not working. Can you give us something else? And then the third thing he said is surrender. Just give up. Just give up. Just sit and be present. Don't try and do anything. Surrender, right? You know, which is a good advice, because if no free will is true, surrender would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that were suggested in terms of the things that you can do. But ultimately, it's kind of, you relate to what's being presented to you, and you combine that with the idea that this is all happening by itself. This is all happening by itself. One of the things that the teachers tell us is that the idea that you don't get that you think you're causing anything, is what's in the way of experiencing the truth. That's what Ramesh Balsekar is trying to get across. That's one of the reasons that I find his teaching very useful, because he's saying, look, all you have to do is develop a deep enough understanding of the truth of no free will, and a deep enough understanding of the truth of that everything is predetermined. And then out of that deep understanding, see if you can actually start to be in the world that way. See if you could consciously and intentionally remember that as you live, moment to moment. Remember that? And if you do that with consistency, you will come out of the dream. If you do that with consistency, the idea that you're a doer will cease. The idea that you're the cause will cease. And when that ceases, you're reconnected with the source. And when you're reconnected with the source, you have that's the experience that you have of freedom. That's the experience you have of being able to surrender and just enjoy the process. As awareness. Surrender and enjoy the process as awareness, not as the person in the world. When people suffer from depression, anxiety, fear, all that, right? That's the person in the world suffering. The awareness can be aware of the person and the suffering and not be either one. And the awareness is always here that way. The awareness is always here that way. So you could say when you're practicing meditation, you're practicing the being that awareness, because when you're paying attention to the breath and the body, the only way you could be paying attention to the breath and the body is as awareness. Thinking can't produce that. So when you're doing that, you're being yourself. When you're doing that, you're being the awareness. So practicing being the awareness so that over time, that practice of being the awareness can begin to recondition your brain in such a way that the awareness starts to come into play in such a way that the thinking activity is no longer dominating the experience. And when that balance occurs, right, that's equanimity. When that balance occurs, you can have one foot in the world and one foot in consciousness and experience being in balance. I don't see it as necessarily getting people to the same place. I understand what you mean by that. But the way I see that is as these different ways of helping the brain to relax, helping the brain to be able to synchronize easier with what's happening instead of being in conflict with it. That can be facilitated by many different things, sense experiences, music, right? In my opinion, the most powerful thing that you can do to expedite the process of waking up and experiencing the truth is to sit in silence, because that's the nature of awareness, to sit in silence, which is one of the reasons why that's so hard to do, right? Because when you sit in silence, it has who you think you are, and it has the way you've been being start to be able to be seen clearly. So you're sitting in silence, you can then be aware of the thoughts that are arising from the view of awareness, not from the idea of yourself as a person, which is in the process of thinking. The understanding and the view of yourself as a person occurs in the process of thinking, right? In the thinking activity. And that's why the simple, easiest, clearest, most direct way is to just move out of the process of thinking and spend as much time as possible with attention on the breath and the body. Somebody mentioned to me the other day who practices Tai Chi Cha. They said, would you consider that to be a similar kind of practice? And the answer is absolutely, because what do they say? What do the teachers in Tai Chi Cha say? Drop your attention to the soles of your feet, right? Yeah, when you practiced Tai Chi Cha, they said, drop your attention to the soles of your feet. And they say that because it's easier than trying to maintain your attention at the dantian, which is actually the center, right? But they're saying drop your attention to the soles of the feet. That's the same thing as saying pay attention to the breath, right? You're focusing your attention on something that takes you out of your head, takes you out of the thinking process and allows you to be present in such a way that you're aware of your body, you're aware of the breath. And if you continue to practice that and you do it with Tai Chi Cha, you then start to become also aware of the Chi, of the subtle energy that's always there, right? But as you practice this and you relax the body more, it becomes more evident. It reveals itself. Is that you feel it. In practicing Tai Chi Cha, the idea isn't do the movement and then ground yourself. No, it's to stay grounded. Stay grounded. Yeah, so when you're coming back, it's just to remind you, come back, come back, come back, because you go away all the time, right? Yeah, so staying grounded. So practicing meditation is a way of developing your ability to stay grounded. Stay grounded, what's that mean, stay grounded? What's another way of saying stay grounded?
Stay here now.
Yeah, stay conscious. That's what grounding is. Stay conscious, stay here. That's what grounding is. Stay here. Don't go into your, people who are very impulsive and erratic and reactive, that's what they have to practice. Stay grounded. Don't keep letting that pull your attention into these patterns that are crazy. Keep in your feet. Stay in your feet. It's an interesting thing. If you practice just that one thing all day long, is to just keep dropping your attention to the soles of your feet, right? Just that one thing all day long, right, would be a very powerful practice. Yeah. In other words, it's all the same thing. It's all the will of God. In and out is the will of God. Doing what works and doing what doesn't work is the will of God. If you look at this in terms of Rupert Spira, for example, right, where he talks about King Lear and John Smith, right? So who really is God? John Smith or King Lear? That's the whole thing. The whole thing is when you take action, right? That's the mistake right there.
Right, it's actions are taken.
Actions happen.
Right, actions happen.
It's like he quotes Buddha, right? Buddha says, actions have things happen, deeds are done, and there's no doer of those deeds. And when these things are said, they're not said like this is a theory. You know what I mean? They're said like this is a fact. And if you live consistent with the fact, right, you'll start to see the world of that. It'll be revealed because you're living consistent with it. You'll start to see the world of it. If you don't live consistent with the truth, you start to see the world of delusion, the dream. That's the world that you get to live in, is the world of the dream. One of the things that I can't emphasize enough about this is that you really do have to cultivate patience. You really do have to cultivate persistence. That's the whole challenge of meditation, right? Keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. Because the meditation is a practice, and you have been practicing the experience you're having of yourself in your life for as many years as you've been on the planet. So the only way out of there is you're going to have to practice the truth. You have to practice the truth until that truth gets as implanted in the neural networking of your brain as what's there now. And then that'll start providing a different experience, wouldn't it? But see, in regard to the teachings that I'm talking about here, what it boils down to is you won't stop breathing. This is very important. What it boils down to is you won't stop breathing. You know why? When you die, you won't stop breathing. You know why? Because you didn't start breathing. Right? It just happened, didn't it? Yeah. Just like everything else, it's just happening. And then you, like most of the ignorant human beings, right, say that you're breathing. You're breathing. You're having a baby. You're getting married, right? You're urinating. You're defecating. You're digesting your food. Right? No, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. You can't do anything. You can't do, see, that's the whole point. You can't do anything. There is no doer. You're not breathing. You don't have children. They have you. You know, it's interesting when women say, I got pregnant. You didn't do anything. And the proof of that is most women, many women get pregnant and they didn't do it, right? They're the ones that want abortions. The ones that don't want abortions, they did do it. That's crazy. Nobody's doing anything. That's the whole point. Can't you see the liberating reality that that provides? Nobody's doing anything. You're not doing anything. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody can do anything to you. You can't do anything to anybody else. And then what explains what happens, right? Nobody's doing anything. You can't do anything to anybody else. Nobody can do anything to you. So then what explains what's happening? Who's doing it?
It's God's will.
It's God's will. And then you can relax, right? Because you have nothing to say about it.
So any mistake I've made, it's...
You didn't make any
I didn't
mistake.
make it.
Now, but here's the thing. You can be free to experience the peace of mind that that allows you, right? But don't forget, in the world, you will be held responsible for your behavior. It's an interesting phenomenon because that means you could end up in prison for the rest of your life but not feel guilty and not believe that you did anything wrong. Interesting, isn't it? I don't know how to answer that question. How do I suggest meditation when you're dealing with irrational people? See, I can give you a short answer to that, and then you have to figure out what the hell I mean by that. But sometimes that's the best way to do this, right? Because then you'll have to figure out what I meant by that, right? Now, the answer to that question is there are no irrational people. There are no irrational people. It's just like they say to the enlightened teachers, okay, this is all well and good, but how do you deal with other people, right? And they say there are no other people. If you can see what that means, if you can experience what that means, right, you will have a very easy time in life. Very easy time in life. Otherwise, so don't give up. You know, if I say something like that, find out what I mean. Find out what that points to. Find out what the teachers are pointing to. I can't change your mind. I can't have you wake up. I can point to what's possible for you, but you have to find out the truth. Nobody can find it out for you. Nobody can discover the reality that you're experiencing other than you. And that's something you have to be patient with, and you have to take time with, and you have to be willing to practice meditation, which gives you the opportunity to be outside of the thinking activity so that you can see things as they are.